The fear of growing older, about aging, loss, and the art of letting go. In this video, we're going to talk about something most of us would rather not think about: fear. Especially the fears that gradually surface as you get older. The fear of losing your appearance, your vitality, your sense of who you are. And underlying that, the fear of the end of life. This video is not intended to scare you. It is an invitation to look honestly at your fears, to understand them, and perhaps to find some peace with them. Because what we do not acknowledge often grows in the dark. What we bring into the light, we can begin to accept. Welcome to Aging Tales. Here we explore what aging really means, not as an endpoint, but as an ongoing invitation to look deeper, live more calmly, and make conscious choices about how we spend our time and attention. Let's explore together. Understanding fears. Before we reflect on each theme, I will briefly give you an overview of where we are going. We've mentioned the 6 fears that come up most often when people are honest when thinking about getting older. They overlap and reinforce each other. But by making them separate from each other, we can take a clear look at each of them. In this video, we look at all 6. Not as problems that need to be solved, but as human experiences that may be understood. The fear of becoming invisible. Let's start with a fear that is rarely spoken out loud, the fear of being invisible to become. This is the uncomfortable feeling that, as you get older, you take up less space in the attention of the world. It can subtly begin. The feeling that your stories don't the attention more hold, that your opinion is kindly heard but is quickly skipped, that you disappear into the background. Research in social psychology confirms this experience. Studies on what one age-related social invisibility calls show that older adults, especially older women, indicate that they feel significantly less noticed and involved in public and professional situations. Here lies a question to dwell on. If our sense of value depends on being seen, what happens to us when that look shifts? And would there be a different kind of presence? Can be, for example, quieter, more inward-looking, which we have not yet learned to appreciate. The second fear is one that most of us in the body itself carry with us: fear of physical decay. This is not one fear, it is a collection of smaller, specific concerns. The fear of memory that falls short, the fear of pain that doesn't go away, the fear of not doing things anymore that you have always done or that were important to you. For example, walking and driving, but also think of skiing, mountain climbing, gardening or playing chess. What makes this fear special is that it is not unreasonable. Bodies change, wealth decreases. Denying that would not be realistic. But what psychological research consistently shows us is that people can do very badly predict how they will deal with loss. People with serious physical disabilities to have to deal with often indicate after the adjustment period that their quality of life is higher than they expected. We are often more resilient than we think. The dreaded disaster. It rarely turns out to be as bad as its expectation. The fear of losing your youthfulness. The third fear is closely related yet different. It's not the fear of physical vulnerability, but for something elusive, the loss of your childhood as an identity. Youth in our culture equals potential, to energy, to the feeling that the story's still wide open. Getting older is seen, in the popular imagination, as getting smaller, doors that close, a shift from protagonist to spectator. The anti-aging industry is benefiting enormously from this fear. Every day we get thousands of messages that tell us that looking young is equivalent to being valuable, that the lines in our face is mistakes that need to be corrected. But I want to offer a counter-image. Each stage of life contains something that the previous one could not offer. Someone of 60 or 70 has something that the 30-year-old does not have. A perspective built from decades of actual life. No theory, no wish. Experience. It is acquired insight. Its ability to discern what really counts and from what seemed to be only important. Losing your childhood is not a failure. It is the price of your arrival in a more experienced phase of life. The fear of the changing appearance. The fourth fear touches something very personal. It's about how we look. Most of us know that moment, maybe when passing a shop window or at seeing a picture on which the face we see doesn't quite match the face that we carry within ourselves. Our inner image of ourselves aged more slowly than the mirror shows. This is sometimes called subjective age. That is the age we feel, and that, according to research, consistently is 10 to 20 years younger than our actual age. When the reality that interrupts inner image can feel that as a small loss of yourself. And this fear is not superficial. Our face is how we present ourselves to the world. It is our first communication with everyone we meet. When it changes in a way which we have not chosen, can feel that as loss of directing our own story. But I want to pause here and ask a question. What if the face of an 80-year-old does not reduce version, is of a younger face, but just a different face? A face with its own story, in which beauty is more characterized by experience, knowledge, and life skills, not despite the lines, but partly through the lines. The face of someone who actually lived and was fortunate to reach this age. Let's not forget that. The fear of becoming a burden. The fifth fear touches us particularly because it is not rooted in selfishness, but in love. The fear of becoming a burden. This fear says, I don't want to cost too much. I don't want my needs to get someone's life to limit who I give. I don't want my physical or mental decline to be their burden. Many older people indicate that this fear outweighs the fear of them physical pain, or even the fear of losing their lives. The idea of dependency, care should receive instead of giving, clashes with a lifetime of independence and with being of someone on whom others could count. It's important to get a different view here. Receiving care is not a failure of independence. It is the completion of the human cycle. Anyone who has ever cared for another will, if he or she lives long enough, in turn, he or she is taken care of. That's not a burden. That's reciprocity. That's what love looks like over a lifetime. It can also be a lesson that we finally have to learn in old age. Let you take care of and learn to receive love without giving anything back immediately. The fear of being forgotten. Among many of the fears we discussed today is a deeper flow, the fear to be forgotten. This is the fear that the special, irreplaceable man we have been, with all our own memories, loves, habits, and ways of looking at the world, simply will disappear, that there will be no trace left. Psychologists sometimes call this the need for symbolic immortality, the human desire to feel that our lives are somehow going on after ourselves, through our children, through work, through relationships, through stories that are told after us. What I'm suggesting is that this is not vanity. It is the recognition of something true, that we, relational beings, are. Our lives are not self-contained events. They have effect outside of ourselves in ways we cannot always see. The question is not whether we will be remembered in history books. The question is whether the way where we have lived has actually touched the lives of others. And for the most of us are the honest answer, yes, more than we realize. The deepest fear, the end of life. And now we come to the fear that underlies all the others, the fear of the end of the life. We have a lot of words for it, going, leaving, saying goodbye, because the direct word sometimes feels too heavy to pronounce in ordinary company. But today, in this space, we can clearly name it, the fear of our end of life. This is one of the oldest and most universal human fears. Any culture that ever has existence has also developed rituals, philosophies, and religions in response to this. It's none weakness. It is a recognition of what it means to live and to know that life is finite. The philosopher Epicurus made the statement, when the end of life comes, we are no longer there to experience it. And yet this argument, however logical, rarely solves the fear. For what most of us fear is not the moment of the end itself, but the loss of everything. The loss of experience, of those around us, of the world we love. This is something to be honest about, not to be deterred by it, but to ask, let it sound that it states, how do I live when I know that time is limited? The older we get, the more we realize that we can't keep postponing what we want. Human beings have been confronting these fears for as long as we have been human. And across thousands of years, thinkers have tried to help. Seneca, writing in ancient Rome, observed that our complaint about the shortness of life is often a complaint about how we have used it. Time, he argued, is not too short. We simply let most of it slip through our fingers. De Beauvoir, writing in the 20th century, identified something more complex. That old age feels like something that happens to other people, until suddenly it is happening to you. It is always, in some sense, a surprise. And Jung argued that the second half of life has its own task. Not the tasks of building and acquiring that occupy the first half, but the tasks of meaning-making, integration, and depth. The afternoon of life, he wrote, is not a diminished morning. It is a different kind of light. What research shows? We do not have to rely only on philosophy. Modern psychology and neuroscience have also begun to paint a more nuanced picture of aging, one that challenges many of our assumptions. Researchers have found that well-being across a lifetime follows what they call a U-shaped curve. It is highest when we are young, dips through middle age, and then, for most people, rises again in the later decades. The fears we project onto old age often do not match the experience of actually being there. Older adults, on average, show greater emotional regulation. They are less reactive, less prone to rumination, and better at finding equanimity in difficult circumstances. This is not passivity. It is a skill that comes with time. And gratitude, the simple capacity to find the present moment worth having, increases with age. The things that younger people pursue as future rewards become, for older people, present realities. The cup of coffee, the conversation, the evening light. Growing older involves real losses, and those losses deserve to be grieved. There is a tendency, well-intentioned, to counter every dark thought about aging with a silver lining, and the silver linings are real. But if we move to them too quickly, we leave behind the legitimate grief of what is actually being lost. Friends who have died, parents who are no longer here, a career that has ended, a version of yourself, energetic, certain, unburdened, that you will not return to. Grief is not a sign that something has gone wrong. It is a sign that what has been lost was genuinely valuable. You cannot grieve what you did not love, and the love does not stop just because the loss has arrived. The task is not to stop grieving. It is to learn to carry grief alongside the other things, alongside pleasure, connection, curiosity, and whatever form of joy is available in the present moment. Finding meaning in the later chapters. Viktor Frankl's insight, developed through perhaps the most extreme circumstances a human being can face, was that meaning is not a luxury, it is a necessity, and it is available in every stage of life, including the last. What changes in the later chapters is not the availability of meaning, but its source. The meanings that sustained us in earlier decades, proving ourselves, building something, providing for others, may gradually yield to others. Connection to people we love. The expression of something through art, writing, gardening, music, cooking, that is distinctly our own. The passing on of what we have learned to someone who can use it. The practice of simply being present to what is here. These are not smaller meanings, in many cases they are larger. They are what remains when the noise has quieted. Working with these fears. So what can we actually do with these fears? I want to be honest, there is no technique that makes them go away. They are part of the territory of being human and mortal. But there are ways of relating to them that make them less paralyzing and more, for want of a better word, livable. First, name the fear as precisely as you can. Vague anxiety is the hardest kind to carry. When you can say clearly, I am afraid that I will lose my independence, or I am afraid that I will be in pain, you have something specific to think about. And specific fears can be examined, discussed, and sometimes addressed. Second, separate the fear from the likelihood. We are not good probabilistic thinkers, especially about things that frighten us. The scenarios we imagine are often more extreme than the reality is likely to be. Third, talk to people who are actually in the territory you fear. Not to be reassured, but to understand what it is actually like, in their honest experience, rather than in your imagination. And fourth, do not wait for meaning to arrive. Build it, now, through the choices available to you today. A different story about aging. I want to offer a different story, not as a replacement for the honest account of difficulty, but as its companion. Growing older also means, for many people, freedom. Freedom from the exhausting performance of early adulthood. Freedom from the need to impress, to compete, to constantly justify one's choices. It means a deepened capacity to enjoy what is actually present, the particular quality of afternoon light, the pleasure of a good book, the warmth of a conversation with someone you have known for decades. It means relationships that have been tested and have held. And it means something rarer still, the quiet authority of having actually lived, not theorized about living, actually done it, through joy and loss, through certainty and confusion, through all of it. This is not nothing. This is, in many ways, everything. a moment of reflection. Before we close, I want to give 3 questions, not to answer right now unless you will, but to take with you. First, which of the fears discussed today feels the most present to you? Not the most logical, not the one you think you should feel. The one who in your experience the most alive. You don't have to do anything with it now. Acknowledging it for yourself alone and clarifying it is already important. Second, what do you want to take with you? We talked about loss, but you're wearing to the next stage of life everything you are with you. What is most valuable of that? What wants do you do the most with that? And thirdly, who can you talk to honestly about this? Not to be reassured or advised to become, just to be heard. These are the conversations that often mean the most, and they find place less often than they should. Is there anyone you could discuss this with, or how could you find someone to discuss this? I want to close with something simple. Growing older is, among other things, a confrontation with everything we cannot control. We do not choose when we age, or how our bodies change, or how much time we have. We cannot undo the losses that have already arrived, but we do choose every day how we meet what is here, whether we look at it clearly or turn away, whether we talk about the things that matter or leave them unspoken, whether we invest in what is still possible or mourn what is gone. The art of growing older is not the art of defeating fear. It is the art of living honestly alongside it, with gratitude for what is still here and courage for what is still to come. Did you find this video helpful? Like us and subscribe to the channel to receive more stories, practical tips and brief reflections on aging. Click the bell icon if you'd like to be notified when new videos are posted. That way, you won't miss any of these conversations. Let's continue exploring together.